So, hello everyone, and welcome to the Student Art Podcast. I'm your host, Ross Baxter, and today is episode 77 of the series. The Student Art Podcast is a weekly series where I bring on guests from the film and game industries to talk about their thoughts on student education. Today on the show, we've got an incredible environment artist on the show. We've got Chris Sims. Thanks for coming on, man. Much appreciated.
Hey, thanks for having me. Really excited to be a part of it.
Anytime. As always, on the Student Art Podcast, like I said, bring on different guests and talk about their background. So first things first, Chris, tell us a wee bit about yourself. So what you do, and I guess the big question, like what got you into art?
Well, right now I am self-taught.
Mm-hmm.
I think really what got me into it about 10 years ago, I started off with kind of like level design, working. I don't know if you're familiar with the Source engine, like Half-Life 2, all those games are run on the Source engine.
Right.
I was making custom maps for it, and I did that for a long time until I kind of got sick with working with like really old engines and tools. Mm-hmm. So I decided to check out Unreal Engine, because this was when Unreal Engine became free to use, like back in like 2014 with UE4. So I decided to check it out to see what a modern tool was like. I'm like, wow, this is really cool. Like, oh my God, the lighting is in real time. I don't have to build the lighting first to see everything, because, and that's where I realized, like, oh, I have to actually learn more about modeling and more of the art side of things, because with the Source engine, it was all BSP, like all brushes. So you could still make stuff with just BSP pretty well. But with Unreal, like, you really have to make a lot of the models yourself. Yeah. So then I started researching about how to make the models myself, and then I came across this term called environment artist, because at the time I don't know anything really about the game industry. So I looked more into that. I'm like, wow, this is really cool. Like, this is what I was doing kind of with the Source engine, except as like an actual career.
Yeah.
So then that's ever since then, that's the path I'm going on. I've been doing self-taught, just as much as I could in my free time, just looking up tutorials, just grinding away at it as much as I could, and yeah, like that's pretty much where it all started, just working with the Source engine.
That's awesome. That's really cool, because so I'm an environment artist, and absolutely love it. I can geek out about it non-stop, and but that's the beautiful thing, and that's the great thing about what you're doing, because I've only actually had, if I recall correctly, I think of all my episodes that I've talked to, I think I've only ever had 3 self-taught artists on. And it's always great to see, and most importantly, hear people's stories about how to approach it from that angle. And like you said, you found your inspiration in, like, I know obviously it's environment art, etc. But as you've gone along, like, what was like the things you learned through self-taught? Like, I understand, like, what would you say is like the pros and cons of doing self-taught?
I would say the biggest, not really con, but I guess, because when you go to school, you definitely have the opportunity to network with people, mm-hmm. and you get experience working with people in an environment, which is definitely handy for real world experience if you're in a studio. And I think it's a lot more difficult trying to discipline yourself to really keep at it. Don't get distracted. You really have to set up your own plan of attack when mm-hmm. it comes to like what you want to learn, what you're going to learn next. That's probably the biggest thing, is like you get to a certain point where you're not new, but also you're not like really great at it. So you're kind of like in the middle, trying to figure out like, what can I learn next? And mm-hmm. you really have to do that yourself. But I think these days there's just so much content out there, so much stuff available to research,
of course, that
it is very possible to be self-taught these days. And I remember I would listen to a ton of podcasts. I don't know if you're familiar with Level Design Lobby.
Oh, right, okay. I've heard of this. No, this is
yeah.
Right, nice.
It's a fantastic podcast with Max Paris. He's a level designer. I think he's at Ubisoft right now.
Amazing, sweet.
And he would always have interviews as well with like other level designers, other environment artists. And something I've noticed is that a lot of them went to school for this kind of stuff. So I would be listening to it, and I would feel kind of like, oh boy, I didn't go to school for this. And, do I have a chance? I'm really learning this all myself. And so I came across this YouTube channel. I'm sure you've heard of it, called Polygon Academy.
Oh, the one and only Tim Simpson.
Tim Simpson, yeah, man. Like when I heard his story about him just graduating from high school and then just learning how to do all this stuff in his parents' basement by himself.
Yeah.
And then he got into the industry. He's been working it for over the past decade. That was a huge inspiration to me.
That's
Like,
perfect.
wow, you really can be self-taught and just get right into the industry.
Yeah, because like that was always the thing because so when I grew up, it was always like I said to everyone before, it was always everyone always told you had to go to university to get a degree, etc.
Yeah.
People always said that you have to do this, you have to do that, like you're saying as well. And like when it came to the whole kind of concept of self-taught, I think it was like you said, it's kind of down to as long as you make the most of it, like you're saying, and you're being committed and that you have the discipline there. And I guess the most important part, I guess, well, actually, this would be a good question. So, like, in your time through doing self-taught, is there anything that you would change in your approach if you were to start again doing self-taught again? If you know what I mean. So,
I would, honestly, I wish I would start way earlier because I didn't get into this. Because I did go to college. However, I went for just like a general IT, like computer systems, degree, just very general. I didn't start getting into this I didn't start getting into the Unreal Engine till like my senior year.
Okay.
So I wish I started way earlier.
So like,
I think that would be like just I wish I was earlier.
Yeah, no, that's a good answer. Great answer. So like, I know you obviously got into like you said there, you got into it in your fourth year. Was there much like how did you come across 3D? Was it literally just because of the sources that you were researching into, or did anything pop up through your studies?
It was really just because I was sick of working with the Source engine. It was so. I mean, I love the engine, but it was so outdated. Just working with the tools. I mean, literally, the tools haven't changed since the Quake engine. I mean, the Quake hammer, like I think it was called Sledge. It's literally like pretty much the same exact UI compared to UE, where they're constantly updating their user interface just all the time. So I wanted to work with something modern, and that's. I had no experience with 3D modeling, none of it, because, like I said, Source Engine, you can get away with just working with brushes and BSP.
Yeah.
So I started researching, how to model, and then I found this article, I forget the website, but it was their process of modeling and getting it into the engine.
Okay.
And that's how I started learning about Substance Painter. And I thought Substance Painter was the coolest thing ever.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
Because at the time I thought it was still, just using like Photoshop, to like texture stuff. Mm-hmm. So being able to texture stuff in 3D, I'm like, wow, this is really cool. And that's how I got more into it. And then, again, that's how I came across the term environment artist, because I knew I always wanted to do something in the game industry, but I didn't know exactly what. Mm-hmm. I didn't know anything about these terms before. So, once I heard about that, it was like a rabbit hole. I got to kick him deeper and deeper into it.
That's amazing. Oh, there's nothing better than when you when you just find that moment and everything clicks, and like when you're just geeking out making art. Like I'm making an art piece at the moment, and yesterday I don't know, I just had this out of nowhere. It was like a eureka moment. Everything was just like, I'm so hyped just to make 3D, and it's like the best feeling ever. And like speaking of 3D, so first of all, by the way, I love your art, incredible environment artist, and we're gonna be diving into your artwork. And first things first, let's actually talk about your latest piece, because it's so good and it raises so many great discussions. So, Swallowed by the Desert. Tell us a wee bit about this piece.
With this, let me bring it up to you just so I can go along with it.
Yeah, it's okay. Take your time.
One moment, please.
Oh, I've got literally every
I'm so
note.
unprepared.
Dude, I've got every note possible, so it's not a problem at all. I've got like every question. It's so well done, and it's really nice because it's also like your art pieces are kind of like a mixture of a wee bit out of the box. Like you kind of look into adding like a bit of a different twist to it, and it's really nice to see.
Exactly. I think every time I want to do like a portfolio piece, I try to find something that nobody has really done before or that many times. And I think that makes it help stand out a bit, especially on ArtStation. There's so much competition out there and so many great artists that it's important to try to get your thumbnail to really grab people's attention and to really just be something different that nobody's really seen before.
So like, was it like, I understand obviously it says in the title, like desert, etc. Working in a desert is something. So I've never touched. These last 2 days of podcast has actually been really cool, because yesterday or the other day, sorry, we were talking about snow, and then having you on, it's a really nice topic, because I've never talked about it on the podcast. So like what was it? Actually, before we dive into desert, like what kind of inspired you to make this piece?
Well, basically every time I want to try to work on a new environment to get inspiration, I always go on Pinterest. I think Pinterest is just an awesome place, because what happens is you can like just search a general key term like just the word sand or desert, and it'll bring up a couple, like just a ton of like related images. But then if you see something that crosses like that gets your attention, you can click on that, and it immediately gives you more related pictures to that specific picture. And that's basically what happened on Pinterest. I just searched desert because I really wanted to make a desert environment because I just love desert environments in games, but I've never really worked on one before.
Yeah.
So I came across this picture of this room that was just filled with sand just bursting through the windows. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I've never seen anything like it.
Sweet.
And I right-clicked it and did reverse Google image search, and it found out it's called, I'm going to butcher this name.
It's okay.
It's like Kolmanskop, I think is the name of the town. It is an abandoned diamond mining town in the Namib Desert.
Yep, I got up on screen as well. Nice. And
it was like, wow, this is really cool because it's just so unique. Like it's desert related, but it's so surreal. And this place actually exists in real life, and I would just love to go there if I could.
Yeah. Oh, there's so much story. Like
yeah.
You have it written down as like it's literally like Last of Us and Uncharted. It's like it just gives you that kind of vibe. You know what I mean? It just gives
exactly.
It's so high quality, and then just the execution as well is even better.
And I think like if this was in a game, I think it'd be really cool to explore. Just like a very unique looking environment, just like for the player to go through.
Yeah. So like speaking of like inspiration and stuff, was there any kind of I know obviously you've got the desert etc., but was there any kind of main kind of I guess goal in mind? I understand that you're saying that you wanted to kind of provide a different twist. Was this something that you've completely never touched upon at all? Because I understand in your tower piece it's outdoors as well.
Yeah, I definitely. I kind of wish I'm trying to push myself further to be more outdoors because I love working with interiors, but I really want to push myself to work more with like landscapes and just stuff I haven't really done before. Which each portfolio piece I try to push myself more.
No, that's really nice.
So with this one, it definitely pushed myself because I never really worked with like sand before, and the sand is literally just a bunch of like the outside is a landscape material.
Okay.
But you can just barely see that. But the interior are just a bunch of like kind of planes I took in 3ds Max. I used the soft selection to kind of like raise it up a bit to create mounds, and I just kind of stuck them everywhere to where they made sense. And then in Unreal, this is featured on 80 level, by the way. So if you like a very in-depth breakdown, I have that on there.
Perfect.
But for the material, what I did is I used the pixel depth offset option in the material.
Oh, right. Okay.
Which is it's a dither temporal AA node, and you multiply it by just like a general amount, and I've turned that into a parameter, and by doing that, it really kind of like blends the edges between, because without this it's a very hard edge, like you can really notice it in the ground. It's a very hard edge. It just doesn't look realistic at all. But by using the dither temporal, it really looks real. Like it looks like the grain of sand is blending between the ground and the plane.
Yeah, it does.
That really helps.
So good. Yeah.
And I combined that with some decals, like some sand decals, and it really helps it like look like it actually is like poured on top of it.
Yeah, it's literally merging with the broken wood.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's those touches that is so nice, and it's like so executed, like it's well executed, etc. And I understand that you also did it modular as well, which is great to see because like that's obviously been the biggest trend over the last few years. Well, obviously for a long time in the sense, but it's mainly kind of like obviously you said Tim Simpson, like everyone kind of learnt so much from him, and it was so great that when Tim made his series that everyone kind of got insight to how things are actually getting done in terms of like trim sheets, you name it. And I understand that you did that as well for the project, and we're going to dive into like because I think this is really awesome, like seeing like your art piece. Not only, like I said, it's at high quality, but there's so many things that are used literally now that you're using, like your mega scans, you name it. Everything is up to date through Quixel, like all these things getting brought together. So just carrying on about making this piece, what would you say when it comes to making an environment make something feel believable and grounded?
I think having the right amount of detail, not going overboard with detail, like having places, for example, the red like walls on the left, a lot of it's still kind of bare, just to give your eyes a place to rest. Just having like the sand. I made sure the sand made sense where there's more sand collected by the windows and by the doorway. Yeah, just having the right amount of detail everywhere where it makes sense. Like
Yeah.
everything needs to make sense. The one picture, there's more like vegetation kind of like growing near the window.
Yeah.
Just details like that. Just not throwing like props randomly in there just for the sake of having them.
Yeah.
I think that really helps it bring it together.
Yeah, because that's always been the thing. Like I'll admit, I was a culprit when I was starting out early on, and I try not to get too carried away, even though it's a force of habit. But like, you tend to sometimes want to just fill the scene with everything at times, and you just like throwing it everywhere and thinking, oh, this is going to add detail. But then you're not breaking it down. You're not thinking about the full process, like you're saying. And like for example, like when it comes to like the main theme, I guess here is like the abandoned building. And the fact that the abandoned building, there's going to be so many things that's happened to it over time. And like, this was one of the coolest things, by the way, that I read in one of your descriptions. And I never actually took the time to really think about this when I was studying. It was so nice to see. So it's a bit of a switch off topic, but I'll translate it back to this. So when you were making the tower piece, you said in one of your descriptions about how the length of grass was based around how much sunlight it was getting on.
Yep.
And when I read that, I was like, nailed it. Like, that was amazing to see, because it's those small things that are actually massive impacts, because we naturally know what looks right and what looks uncanny, if you know what I mean. And when you said that, I was like, that's amazing, because that then translates over to this piece that you're working on. Like, you're not just throwing things about, just like placing them randomly. Like, there's a method to the madness, if you know what I mean.
Exactly, and I think if you're working with a stylized art direction, you can get away with a lot more. But when working with photorealism, you really have to, things have to make sense. And in my abandoned tower piece, it's a big missing chunk from the ceiling where the roof caved in. But so obviously there's gonna be a lot of plantation around that hole, and there's still some plantation that can grow further away. But as you can see, there's it's dead. Like a lot of the vegetation around that further away from the hole is dead and all dried up. Because it's just not getting sunlight, it's not getting as much rain, like if it rains. Just stuff like that is just, like it's like real life, it's all about studying how just stuff works in real life and just putting into your art. If you're going for a realistic direction, that is.
So when it comes to, so carrying on this kind of theme that we've got going, so like repeating elements, when do you, like how do you approach that? So like when it obviously comes to modular work, so like when do you, like when you're kind of dishing things out and placing them, like what's your thought process behind like reusing things?
Like breaking up repetition?
Yeah.
Well, first I remember reading an article on 80 level. I feel so bad because I forget his name, but he was a level designer on Doom 2016.
Oh, right, nice.
And it was about when to use a modular approach and when not to. And he basically said that if you're going to be using a lot of the same elements, then it might be good to use a modular approach. However, if you're not, then it's okay to just use some unique meshes, because sometimes trying to create a modular kit can take way more time than needed. And for my abandoned tower, I didn't use modular pieces, like all the walls. It was very simple.
Yeah.
It was just like a couple walls. It wasn't modular at all. That was way faster than trying to make a modular kit, because it just wasn't really needed. And so when using a modular kit, I use a lot of decals. If you look around the windows, there's just like a ton of like chip, like edge wear around the decals. Around the window, especially on the left, you see some like plaster around the edge. And my favorite thing is, if you're familiar with Hitman, the newer Hitman games, what was that?
So I've not played it, but I've seen it.
Their best thing, what I love so much about, and they kind of pioneered this, I think with Hitman Absolution in 2012.
Okay.
They use edge decals around every corner, around like a corner of windowsills, of doorways, and they're literally just planes with like normal map detail. Detail, and it just looks so nice because around every edge of a corner, it's just kind of chipped, and it just looks so nice, and like it's like grounded, and just details like that I think really help, cement the objects, and they're not just floating there in space. Like they feel like they're actually there,
of course,
and they're being chipped away, by the elements, and just a lot of decals like that help break it up.
Oh, thank you for diving into that because like that was actually that raised a really good question. So when it comes to so you've kind of touched on it there. So you've got say an artist is trying to think, right, do I go down the route of modular or do I just do it the normal way, step by step? How do you, or what advice through your experience would you say helps decide which route to go by?
I would say definitely look at the reference picture. Again, on my 80 level, I had kind of like a little breakdown I did where I just went into Photoshop and I just kind of like plotted out which elements repeated the most.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just look at your reference picture and be like, okay, how many times is this piece, what can I turn into a modular piece? How many times does it repeat? And for example, in this scene, there's just a lot of repeating elements with the windows and the walls. So I'm like, okay, this would really benefit from having a modular piece because then I only have to make like 3, maybe 4 different pieces and I can create a whole environment off of it. However, if there's not that many repeating elements, I would consider maybe using a unique mesh, but it just all comes down to how many times it repeats,
Yeah.
Yeah, this will really benefit from it.
Thanks for saying that because like that's the thing at the end of the day, like there's so many things that are like so rewarding when you do things modular, but it's down to making sure that you're using it in the right situation and you're not just doing it for the sake of it. And it's making sure that at the end of the day, because everything's efficiency based. And like speaking of like modular kits, before we get into the next kind of topic, would you say there's anything that you've like what was like the main thing you learned while you were doing modular kits? Is there any tips that kind of saves time?
Definitely have a standard. For example, lay out a standard first. That saves a lot of time. Like have walls. Okay, these walls, all walls are going to be like, this by this. Like they're all going to be this length.
Yeah.
And definitely have a standard like that because it makes it so much easier when everything just fits together. It causes a lot of like headaches down the line when nothing is on the grid properly or nothing really fits together. I've had that so many times where like I go to swap out a piece and it's like, oh, it's not on the grid. Oh, it doesn't fit together properly. Oh, it just creates such a headache.
Yeah.
So definitely lay out, very simple. This is why the block out process is so important because you get all this stuff out before you add the detail.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's way easier to fix mistakes when it's just a simple gray box and when everything is already UV mapped and, everything's set in place.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, definitely lay out a standard for your grid.
Yeah. This is good, amazing. This is awesome. Thanks for all this. This is great. So
no problem.
It's you just made me completely think of something. So I'm making this Harry Potter diorama piece at the moment, and my focus for this piece has been obviously to learn the elements of I can tackle through the diorama, but it's actually like the design aspects as well. And this ties back to what you said about the block out, and also what I was talking the other day to Milan on the podcast. So this is what I've done. So this is what I've done right, and this is what I've done wrong. So I'm focusing on design at the moment and trying to get better at design. So I'm literally just throwing shapes at ZBrush and just blocking things like crazy. However, when it comes to that kind of situation, you have to then realize, right, is it better to do it in Photoshop, so just get a sketch done? And it goes back to what you said there about blocking, because at the day, if your blocking's wrong, I say it so many times on the podcast because to me, it's the number one most important part of everything. Everyone always likes to dive into detail, as I say a lot, and the reason why I say it so much is because we get carried away by all these amazing things, especially one of the topics that we're going to talk about, and I can't wait to talk about it. It's like there's so many great scans out there, there's so many great tools, but it's getting that healthy balance of when to do things and how to approach it, just so once again it goes back to that topic of efficiency. So like speaking of just like carrying on this theme about like your process, etc. So when it came to like texturing, so how did you approach the texturing for this?
For the texturing, I use a lot of tiling materials from Megascans. I just love it. I think it's just really cool having all these assets available to you to just kind of like whip together.
Yeah.
I definitely want to get more into creating my own materials especially with, I don't know if you're familiar with Quixel Mixer, especially their newest update.
Yeah, so this has been brought to me. So Milan said this in the last podcast, and then Alex, I was talking to Alex as well about this because I've never used it, but it'd be great to hear more about it from your perspective.
It's awesome because I've always wanted to get into Substance Designer, but it's very technical. It's like you kind of have to change the way you think. Mm-hmm. It's very, very technical. I've always tried to get into it, but it's just been very tough. With Quixel Mixer, it's more like Photoshop creating materials,
Okay.
and you can go into the Megascans library and just kind of mix Megascans together and create something new. However, with each new update, they've been adding more and more procedural tools as well.
Right.
And
Nice.
there's just been some crazy stuff people have made with these procedural tools. And for example, you can be creating a subway wall tile, and you can have a repeating square pattern. It's all procedural. But what's so cool about Mixer is that you can add a paint layer and actually go into it and paint out and mask out different tiles. And you're actually painting on the material,
Yep.
which is just so crazy to me, as opposed to Designer, where it's all node based, and you kind of have to, you have to take this node and then edit this node with another node and do that over and over again. It's just a completely different workflow. So with Mixer, it's a lot more hands-on, which is
Yeah.
really cool.
It's kind of like it kind of reminds me in a way, but it's like vertex painting but better.
Yeah, exactly. It's so much more hands-on, and Designer, I think, is still very, very powerful. I think it's still going to be very powerful. It's crazy the amount of tools that you have on your hands.
Yep.
With Mixer, I think it's just a lot more artist friendly, because it's like Photoshop basically.
Yep. So like when it comes to like on this topic of Mixer, if you were to like say people tuning in and they're wanting to start, is there any kind of advice you'd give them?
I would just kind of maybe just play around with it for a bit. There's some great tutorials on YouTube from Quixel themselves. His YouTube channel, it's Design with TP. He has a ton of Quixel Mixer tutorials. It's great. He really dives into the fundamentals and the theory behind it as well. For example, he has this one video about creating just basic patterns, basic cinder block patterns, but he also goes into the real life construction of these cinder blocks. And I think it's important when you're creating materials, especially when it's like realistic materials, is just understanding how they're made in real life and really going into the design of them. Like you're going into masonry basically with this tutorial, and it's just really cool to learn about how stuff is made in real life, which I think is what I love most about environment art, is just figuring out how stuff is made in real life and trying to replicate that.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's an amazing point, because like that's the thing. So this is the beauty about diving into these scans, etc. Like everything Epic's provided, you name it, all these different things, is the fact that you're able to see what the final result is going to look like, but most importantly, a breakdown of it. I understand sometimes you don't have much control over certain ones in terms of how much you can edit it, but you can still manipulate them depending on what you're working on. Obviously, when you're working with Painter and that, you have more freedom, but certain things are going to be down to your ability as an artist to create the best and the actual professional result, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's why I think it's great that Mixer is becoming, with each update, they're adding more procedural tools. So it's going to get to the point where you could just create as anything you want with just the procedural tools, which I think is really important, because it gives you a lot more freedom with their tools.
So I assume that you've got like your own library of assets that do you use do you have a library in which you can use for multiple scenes, or do you like just divide them up to based off the environment, I assume?
I definitely, it all depends on for example, before I start a new project, I kind of just look at the materials that are in the scene, and then I'll, just do research. I'll go through the library and just try to find stuff that fits it, and like I'll favorite it. I'll hit a star to favorite it, and I'll basically just favorite, what kind of materials I think would fit, or if I want to, kind of like mix my own in Mixer. And that's basically like my workflow, just figuring out what kind of materials would fit the scene.
That's awesome.
And then also, when it came to texture the props, I did use Painter. There's not many unique props in the scene. The bathtub and the chair. I made those in Max, and I did texture those in Painter. Those were a lot of fun. The rug and the curtains I made in Marvellous Designer, which I think is a really, really cool program.
Ooh, nice.
For simulating cloth. And what I did was I took the scene that I had at the time. It was more of like an advanced blockout, and I merged them together in Unreal, and then I exported it as an FBX, and then I went into Marvellous Designer and I imported it as an FBX, and that gave me kind of like the framework of just being able to simulate cloth on top of the actual geometry, which allows me to create like unique looking cloth, like the rug. it forms to the shape of the broken floor,
Right.
which is, I think, really, really cool.
Wait a second, I did not know this. Wait, so you can import scenes into Marvellous Designer?
Yeah, you can. That's what I did. I took what I had already. I merged all the assets together because it was all modular. So I merged it into a single mesh, and then you can right click it in the content browser.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it's under asset actions. Again, it's on my 80 level. If you, I have like a little detailed breakdown how to do it,
Mm-hmm.
and you can export it as an FBX and then import it into Marvellous Designer as an FBX. And it's cool because it seems to take the actual collision of the model. It's not like Unreal where you import something, and if you import it with the auto generated mesh, it's kind of wonky and it doesn't really fit the mesh. In Marvellous Designer, it seems to have like accurate collision, which allows you to actually drop cloth onto your geometry and it just forms to it already.
Yeah. So is there any post after that? Are you doing any editing? Are you taking it into any other software, or is it literally fully done in Marvellous?
First, I do it in Marvellous. So when I get what I think looks nice, then I bring it into ZBrush to clean it up, to like, really like for the retopology, to clean up the mesh, to bring down the poly count, because it's to get an accurate simulation. There's a lot of polys, like a lot of vertices in there to really make it nice and smooth. So making sure it's game ready is important. So I do that in ZBrush. I kind of want to learn more about Blender, because apparently Blender's cloth simulation is really good too, and you can do.
Yeah, on you go. I won't interrupt.
No, you're cool. Because right now, I'm taking from Marvellous Designer into ZBrush and then into Unreal. But apparently in Blender, you can do all that straight into the single program. Like you can do the cloth simulation, and then you can clean it up inside Blender. So Blender is something I do want to get more into in my free time, because that just sounds like it saves so much time.
This is such a great topic, because so I don't know when they added it in. I might be completely wrong. I'm pretty sure it's last month or so. It might be even longer. But they have that in Blender. They have this brush. Have you seen it? Like the
cloth brush.
Oh,
right?
It's so nice.
That's so crazy.
Sick. It's madness. It's just like it's literally like imagine a character artist sculpting for ages doing the folds, and then you just go into Blender and just go whoop.
It's just so cool. Like that's why in my free time, like I really want to learn Blender. It's always tough learning a new program, especially going from Max to Blender, because it's just like a completely different workflow. Mm-hmm. But I really want to get into it. It really seems like once you get into the workflow, it's super fast compared to something like Max. What I love about Max is the layer stack. I don't know if you, because I know you use Maya, right?
Yeah, I'm a Maya guy, but I know the basics of Max, but I'm not the greatest. I'm okay.
I think what's really holding me back from switching is the layer stack. It's very similar to Photoshop, where you have stacks of modifiers. Mm-hmm. For example, you can start off with a box, and then I can add an edit poly modifier on top of that box, and then I can edit it, and then I can add another edit poly modifier and make like big drastic changes. And so later on, I could be like, I don't really like that. I can delete that edit poly modifier. I can delete all those edit poly modifiers and go back to the box before I even edited it.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very non-destructive workflow, which I really like, and that's kind of holding me back from switching. Mm-hmm. But I really want to try Blender. When I see stuff like that brush, the cloth brush, I'm like, oh man, I really need to switch.
It's so good. Well, but then again, that's the thing as well. And I think that's the thing that I think people have to be open to as well. Is it's not just the switch. So the switch is very important, but also realizing it's okay to use multiple as well. Exactly. It's just down to as long as you're okay with controlling, like getting used to like switching, like imagine going from ZBrush UI to Blender. Like I don't know the controls for Blender, but then to 3ds Max. Like you're trying to remember everything, but then again, it's second nature. The more you do it, it'll become a habit. If you know what I mean. So like, there's nothing wrong with that. So if there's certain tools that, for example, that like most people in games use Max. So if you're using Max and then you're like, you know what, I want to get cloth in Blender, use Blender. And then if you want to do sculpting in ZBrush, then boom, bring it to ZBrush, then do your low poly, whatever, in your software of choice. Like there's so many things out there. It's just down to like everyone says on the podcast, like everyone has their slightly different twist of doing things, and that's the beauty of it, because everyone has like their own approach.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I see it all the time. Like, everybody's always asking, what program is the best? What should I get into?
Yep.
I think, yeah, you shouldn't limit yourself to one program. I think each one has its own workflow and just quirks that are unique to that one program. That if you limit yourself to one, there might be another one that you are way better at, that you're way more efficient at. And like maybe you try Blender first and you're good with it, but maybe Max you have a better workflow. And you don't know that until you try it. So I think it's important to just, don't become loyal to one. Just give everyone a chance. Each one has its own quirks and workflow.
Yep, nailed it. Awesome answer. So the next question. So this is a bit of everything. This is a great question because once again, this is one thing I've learned from your artwork, and it's really strong. And I'm not sure it was intentional, but what you do, it's incredible when I see it. And it's something that I always like to bring up. So it's making your work stand out. So getting people to obviously recruit you, etc., and giving people advice on how to make something appealing. And when I see your top image on both your pieces, like it's instantly like a go-to click. As in, I see your thumbnails, I'm like, right, it's instantly intrigued me. Is there any advice you could give artists on how to maybe make better thumbnails or maybe make better decisions on maybe portfolio? Like I understand, like I always like to say, choose something that you're passionate about, but you also want to make sure that it's engaging as well, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of competition at ArtStation, a lot of really, really great artists out there. And yeah, thumbnail is extremely important. Just getting people's attention, like catching their eye, whether skimming through all the other posts on ArtStation. And I think composition is extremely important. I think that's where the art of our environment art comes into, is the composition.
Yeah.
I just having really nice looking composition. For example, in my tower scene, the whole of the ceiling is creating a frame around the tower.
It's so good.
It's like the tower's like, it's towering over you. Like it's so large and just in charge. And it really grabs your attention. And the thumbnail for the desert environment, it's I think I really like the red. Like it's very nice, sharp red. And then you have the light shafts coming in, and bouncing off the walls. And I just think it looks really nice. And again, it comes out of having something that nobody's really done that much before.
Yeah.
Just having like just having something that has like you don't really see much of definitely helps it stand out.
Yeah, I completely agree. But that you nailed it there when you said that, because at the end of the day, like I always say, silhouette is the most important thing. So when you're saying about like the composition, like I'm pretty sure. So the first piece I came across your work was the tower, because it was literally like it was straight to the point. I knew what I was going to click and I knew what to expect because of, right, this looks really nice. Everything was just so clear what was going on, and at the end of the day it was like, right, he's delivered the message, everything makes sense, there's a story there as well. And the great thing as well is when I'm reading your art pieces is you're putting a story in the description. And like when I'm reading the reasoning behind your art piece, why you've made things the way they are, like it's great to see, and it makes everything feel complete. And like that's one thing I think it'd be nice to see everyone adding, like, or more people doing it. I understand people still do it, but it's getting more people into the habit of give a wee bit of story, tell us a reason about it.
Exactly. This is my favorite thing about environment art, is being able to tell a story without words.
Yeah.
Being able to tell a story without characters in the scene. The scene is good. I mean, you can have characters in there too. For example, in the tower scene, I have like crows, which the crow models I just bought for like $5 on the marketplace, just to kind of like add some life into there.
Yeah.
But still, like being able to tell a story without like characters talking is just so important, and which is why Left 4 Dead was one of my favorite games to make maps for on the Source engine, because it blends together single player, like cinematic single player elements, and multiplayer co-op elements. And there's a lot of environmental storytelling in those maps. I really recommend just going on YouTube and just looking up the developer commentary for all the Left 4 Dead maps, because they go into depth about how, for example, if you're going through like an abandoned street and you see how the car doors are left open and the lights are still on, meaning that those people left in a hurry. Or you have someone who's like, they're crouched up. Like you see a dead body in a corner with a gun in their hand, and there's like a bloodshot coming out of their head. It's like, oh boy, that guy kind of just, took his own life. Like, that's just tell a story with your environment. And I think everybody has a couple projects that just kind of didn't really get finished.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I've realized that a lot of those projects that I don't finish, it's because I wasn't telling a story.
Yeah.
I think if when I'm telling a story, that's what keeps me invested. And that's what really brings life to your scene. It just makes it more interesting to look at.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Because this is great. Because that's the thing. Because like stories always at the end of the day, it's the thing that makes or breaks an art piece. Like you said,
Yeah.
It doesn't get people to finish the result that they're trying to achieve. Like I said, so I'm making my Harry Potter piece. My story is all about the importance of intelligence for Ravenclaw, and trying to get across the story behind Rowena and what her mentality was, and also trying to get across a wee bit of a twist on it, so like giving her a wee bit of an egotistical approach to being I'm so smart, if you know what I mean. So trying to figure out how would the so instead of just having a chair, so I have a throne that I'm making. So what I've done is I've put a small stool in front, and it's like the way it's angled, I'm trying to figure out, right, because if you think about it, someone's high up on a throne and they're so relaxed and they've got their feet up, you can tell like they're confident, if you know what I mean. You know that they're the person, like they've just got everything going on, and it's like these small things that it could just obviously it could make or break depending on how you set it up, and it's a balance between less and more and so forth. It's all these things going on, but that's the beauty of composition. That's the beauty of storytelling, like you're saying, and like that's another great thing. So this is one thing I highlight all the time, and you said it right at the start when we were talking about the Lone Tower. So when it comes to working with scale and framing a piece and composition, is there any advice you would give? Because I know when I was reading through your article, you came across it was really nice to see, and it's really fun, is like when you're cheating things. So like, could you like talk a wee bit about that?
I would say definitely when you're in the blockout phase is define hero shots. Like just find a couple angles you want and just place a cinematic camera there. Also, I would give advice is when you place a cinematic camera, if you go in the top left, when you have it select, when you are viewing the cinematic camera's perspective, and the top left, there's a drop down arrow. Click that and hit lock position. Because there are so many times where I'm looking through my camera and I end up moving it accidentally.
Yep.
Like, oh man, like I definitely lock your hero shot camera position so you don't accidentally move it. So yeah, have a one or two hero shots and just work off of those shots. Every once in a while, like pin the view of the camera to see how the composition's looking out through that specific angle. That's what I did for both my scenes. The tower scene, I had a single shot looking directly at it, and so like I had a good reference of where the frame was, how the frame was looking throughout the blockout process. And again, it allows you to be able to cheat a bit, like you said. The background, the mountains, it's just like a bent plane that I got a transparent picture of like a mountain range.
Genius.
So
well done.
Being able, like, if this was a game, I would use actual like landscape geometry. But for that specific shot, you're able to get away with it because you know where the scene is cut off, where you're able to hide things. So I definitely recommend having one or two camera placements that are going to be your hero shot, where that's where the composition really shines, and that's might be your thumbnail on ArtStation. So definitely have that from the very beginning.
So this is one thing that I was always struggling when I first started out, and I think I've mentioned it maybe once or twice a long time ago on the podcast, and it's knowing how many shots to put on. So a lot of people want to obviously showcase all the things that they've done, but like when you go to like, how do you choose like what's a good shot and like when to like that's a shot I should upload?
Yeah, I'm pretty guilty of having too many camera shots. I've always heard that, especially if you're trying to get a job in the industry, like recruiters, they don't have much time to look at your piece. They have tons and tons of applications to look through. You want to get it straight and to the point. And so I think having at least one or two main hero shots, I know in my pieces I have a couple more, not going to lie. But yeah, like maybe two, maybe three hero shots. And to me, just something with strong composition. I think the best thing to do is just to kind of not look at a specific shot for a little bit, because when you're working on your piece, you kind of just get used to how everything looks. You know,
Definitely.
you're not really familiar with, like, if somebody sees your piece for the first time, you're not used to how it looks because you just, you know, you were looking at it like all day long.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely maybe take like a day or two to just kind of like relax and not look at it, and then come back to it and look at your hero shots and see like what jumps out at you.
Yeah.
And if something jumps out at you, then definitely use that as your thumbnail. I definitely think having like a hero piece, like a hero prop, like the Lone Tower, the tower is the hero piece, and that's the first thing that jumps out at me. I'm like, boom, that's my thumbnail.
Yeah, no, because like that's the great thing. Because like I'm just scrolling through right now, and the one thing I always like to do, just because of me being we all, there's so many of us who like to do it. It's like we all want to make sure everything has a reason, has a purpose, and every image that you've got has a purpose, and it tells a story. It makes you think. Like one of my personal favorite ones is actually. So you've got your video at the top, and then you've got the two ones. So the third one down, the one it's like it's kind of like back, almost in the back of the room, and you can see the bottom of the tower, and you're just like trying to figure out, wow, like how big is this thing really? Like, and it's like that kind of story, because obviously it's really dark on the whole right, like everything's kind of like leading you to the left, and that's a really nice and simple just execution, and it's great to see that, because like that's another thing that I made sure to get into a habit of when I was doing my artwork. And like, what's your thoughts on post processing? Like, how do you approach that?
The post processing, I think an important thing is to not to go too crazy with it and end up, because what I usually do is I have a bad habit of sometimes washing out my colors with like too strong of post processing, and you lose a lot of those like nice vibrant colors.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely, maybe sometimes less is more. Mm-hmm. For this one, for example, the tower environment, I wanted just kind of like a warm summer afternoon. So I kind of just tinted it a bit yellow. I raised up the auto exposure to kind of bring some more light in the back, because without the post processing, it's kind of a bit too dark and just kind of like boring looking. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of like increased the yellows a bit, and I added a bit of green too, and I just increased the post processing, and I added a very slight amount of fog as well, which I think helps to kind of the silhouette. On my ArtStation page, let's see, there's the video, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4. On the fifth shot, in the foreground, you can see dead weeds.
Okay.
And I think the fog really helps separate the foreground from the background.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
There's a very light yellow sheet of fog that kind of breaks between the two, and I think it really has a really interesting shot.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, that's an amazing shot. Yeah, I should scroll down even further. That's amazing. That's incredible. That's great to see. Oh, and then you got the paper as well. You've got to add the paper.
Yep.
That just finalizes everything.
Also, yeah, I think with this scene, I kind of based it off of because I'm from Pennsylvania, and there was, in the 1970s, before Chernobyl, there was almost a nuclear accident. It's called the 3 Mile Island accident, and it was almost as bad as Chernobyl. It was almost really, really bad. There was a meltdown, and there's a bit of radiation that leaked, and it was a huge scare. And that I think around this time I was working on this scene, they announced that power plant was closing because it was still in operation. Mm-hmm. There was just the one reactor was destroyed, but they announced the closure. So I kind of wanted to make something based off of that. And with this environment, it's a story of a power plant that was being constructed. And when the 3 Mile Island accident happened, which that's an actual newspaper clipping from the accident, they just halted construction. Mm-hmm. And it's just been sitting there and ruined ever since. And because that's what happened when the 3 Mile Island accident happened. Yeah. It just stopped the nuclear power industry like in its tracks. And Chernobyl just, that pretty much killed it off. And I just wanted to make a scene based off of it.
That's nice. That's great. Thanks for including that, because that just makes everything kind of fall into fruition. That's great. Because that's always the thing as well. And like you said right there at the start when you were explaining about like adding like the foliage and stuff. So what was your I know I'm asking lots about your process. It's just that it's great to see it. So how did you approach making the grass? Because I really like how you exaggerated it, because obviously that once again adds to the story. Is like they can't get in there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. The in the one shot where it's out in the field, all the grass there it is a Megascan texture. However, I made a plane. I just made a simple plane, and I added some vertices there just so I can manipulate the plane, make it not perfectly flat, just kind of make it like a little wavy. And then I added the material there, and I added some just like simple wind. You can't really see it in the video, but the grass does sway back and forth, so it looks like it's kind of like a breezy summer day.
Mm-hmm.
And I just added a ton. I use the foliage tool to just go throughout the field and just plant all the grass there because it's very overgrown, past the barbed wire.
Yeah.
Same with all the grass in the foreground. I just use the foliage tool again to keep in mind of where I'm placing the foliage, make sure it makes sense, have the dead plants further away from the hole because they're not getting as much sunlight like we've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's just all about making sure what you're putting there makes sense.
Amazing. Right, so I've got a few more questions before we get into the fun section of the podcast. This has been great talking so far. Thank you for everything you said. It's been such a good discussion. So when it comes to these art pieces that you've created, if you were to redo them again, is there anything you would change? Or if you were to add on to them, what would you do?
I think for the tower scene, I think I would go back and maybe add some more destruction to the tower. I think
Mm-hmm.
it could use a bit more weathering. There are some stains coming from the top because I was using reference pictures from other nuclear sites that were abandoned, and it's kind of crazy that the tower didn't look that destroyed in some of the reference pictures. But so I think I would go back there and kind of just make it maybe a bit more yellowish, a bit maybe even add some destruction to the top of it, like maybe like a missing chunk out of it, and you have like the framework poking out of it from the piece that has been falling off. Yeah. That is definitely something I would change in that one.
Nice.
But I think.
Yeah, it's always a hard one, is it?
Yeah, I think for the desert scene too, I wish I would add some more. I think for the curtains, I think I could have added some like wind to the curtains as well. So like when the video, I kind of wanted the winds to affect the curtains, so it's moving back and forth like very slowly. That would have been awesome.
That would be sick.
Maybe I can go back and maybe I can make a similar scene, or maybe go back to this one and add that to it. But yeah, I think that would be really cool having the curtains move with the wind. Would I add some more life to it?
Man, you just made me realize. I'm not sure you probably thought of this already, but I think you could probably merge these two into a film, like a story, like the two worlds. I think they work really nicely, and it's a nice contrast as well.
Very nice sharp contrast between the colors and the lighting. Yeah,
it's also like I can see you've got your own kind of style or taste. Like I can see in the way you light things, the way you create things. It all ties together as one, and it's nice to see that consistency because consistency is so key. And the fact that you've everything just makes sense and it's great. But great answer. Thanks for that. So before we get into the 500, I call it 500 seconds, but it's never 500 seconds. Everyone knows the rules. I always just talk. So as always, is there any websites? I know we've touched on it so far. Any websites, YouTube channels, and sources that you would recommend?
I definitely recommend getting on Polycount. It's fantastic forum. Lots of people on there, just helping each other out. Just post your work. People just get some nice feedback. Give other people feedback. It's just a great site. I mean, I've learned so much from that website. Another shout out to this is actually one of the very first tutorial series I started watching about the Unreal Engine. Ooh. It's World of Level Design. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
I'm not. This is great.
Yeah, World of Level Design. They just released tutorials on some, like using the landscape tools and sculpting landscapes. Mm-hmm. He was the very first tutorial series I watched on Unreal. And he kind of has a similar background. He first started off making levels for Source Engine games too. Mm-hmm. So, huge shout out to him. I definitely have gotten where I am because of him. And just definitely check him out. He's fantastic work.
There was one thing that I came across. I'm going to check it after I finish the podcast. I've never heard of it, but could you tell me about what is the Proper People channel?
Oh, Proper People. Okay, so I think the style that I kind of really find myself going, the environments I always end up making is I just love like destroyed, just kind of like run down environments. However, I love environments that are abandoned but not affected by human life. Mm-hmm. Like just abandoned and just affected by the weather. So like not really any graffiti, just kind of just the elements chipping away at it. And they're proper people. They are a urban exploration channel on YouTube, and they are some of the best urban exploring videos I've ever seen. Just fantastic production. And they don't just explore the environments; they give a backstory about what has happened. They are very natural. They don't really add any kind of like cheap like sound effects or scares to their videos like a lot of YouTube channels do. It's just very raw. Just the environments. Just it lets you. They let the environment speak for themselves, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, the proper people. Fantastic videos, just exploring really cool rundown environments, and that's where I get a lot of my inspiration from.
Oh, I can't wait! I'm gonna like that. Just sounds so up my street.
It's great.
That's amazing.
It's great. It's just amazing the environments they come across, and they travel all over the world. It's crazy. Yeah. They were just in Japan.
Wow. Oh, dude, I'm so excited because that's something when I saw it, I was like, wait, what is this? Because I was just getting everything prepared, and this looks so fun because I understand that there's so many people who also like that style as well. And it's lots of people's personal favorite. Like we all love like The Last of Us. We all love anything Naughty Dog related. You name it.
Oh yeah, they're great.
Like they're just breathtaking artwork. So right here we go, my friend. So it's now the fun section of the podcast. Well, it's already been mega fun, but there's even more questions to come. But so basically, what I do is, as always, everyone tune in. The podcast always ends with a bunch of random questions about the guests and bringing up some really unique random topics. So, the first one today, I was just carrying on the theme from the last podcast. So, if you could invent anything, what would it be and why? Like, and you could literally have the chance from, like, or like, something from a film, if you could, like, grab it from a film and, like, be able to use it, what would you do?
I would,
The big question straight away. I do apologize.
Yeah, it's like wow, like anything. What would it be?
I did not expect this today.
I think, man, what would it be? So many great things in games and movies. I think.
On you go.
Not gonna lie, I think it would be the gravity gun from Half-Life. That thing is just fantastic. I think it would make work so much easier.
Right.
Being able to just lift stuff, like like it just punted across the world. Like that would be so cool in real life.
Yeah.
Same with the polar gun. Like, man, those things are so awesome to have. It's very dangerous too. Very dangerous things to have and wield.
I wasn't sure which route you were going to go down, but that's a creative route. So thanks for going down. That's a good choice. Right. This is a bit of a random one. Right. So if you had to be shipwrecked on a deserted island, I had to ask this when I saw the word desert. But and you have all your human needs sorted, such as food and water, so you're fine. But what 2 items would you take?
So you have everything human related is needed. So like, how about food and water?
So you're sorted, but you can have 2 items. What would you take?
I would say, okay, part of the human. Let's say internet's there. Internet.
Okay,
take
perfect.
that.
You got the internet.
Oh shit, man.
The pressure's on. Dun, dun, dun.
You can't just say computer because there's more to a computer than just the tower.
Yep.
Man, this goes to show how much of a nerd I am. If
I'm
on a desert,
the more nerd, the better, man. It's all about this is why I do this part of the podcast. It's so cool seeing everyone's different takes, and it's so nice.
I would say 2 things: internet service, and I guess it would have to be a smartphone because I think it is important to keep up to date what's going on in the world, even if you're stranded on a desert island. Perfect. So it just goes to show how nerd I am. Internet, smartphone, and I'm good.
The most powerful phone of all time.
Do whatever you want on it.
Great to see. Right. This is one an interesting one. What advice would you give your younger self?
I would start this way earlier. Start this way earlier.
Yeah, you already
There's
said.
so much. I mean, that is definitely the thing I would have told myself because there's so much. This stuff requires so much time and effort that the earlier you start, the better. Just start.
Start.
Just immediately, just stop procrastinating. Just download software, get on these tutorials, and just start. Yeah, that's all I can say.
Right. This one is the hardest one ever for me. Well, actually, I don't know. It depends. Who are 3 people who have influenced you the most?
Okay, definitely. First off, Bob Ross.
Oh, good. Oh, yes. Right. Nailed it. Right.
Bob
good
Ross
choice.
I just love listening to him, and he's just so many of his philosophies are just great. My favorite quote from him is, talent is just a pursued interest.
Yeah.
Anything you're willing to do, you can get better at.
Yeah.
And I think I just butchered that quote, but basically the same thing. Like talent is just pursued interest. Like just taking the time to get better at it and just learn and just I love watching him. Like he just calms me down. It just man, I love Bob Ross. I wish he was still around.
Yeah,
but
definitely
want to have him. I'm going to like all the PBS characters. Mr. Rogers.
Oh, really?
I love
nice.
Mr. Rogers. You know, I grew up watching him, and again, he's just another just fantastic human being. Just he was all about just treating others with respect, and just those two together are just fantastic.
Awesome.
And I feel like I'm just geeking out here, but Tim Simpson, like,
you got
just fantastic. And again, like before he started his channel, I was very uncertain about my path in this industry because, again, every single podcast I listened to about people being interviewed, they would always say that they were going to school for this stuff, and it just made me feel kind of left out and just very unsure if I could make it in the industry. And then when he made his channel, and he just straight up said that he graduated high school and that was it. He didn't go to college for anything, I don't think. And he's in the industry now for the decades now, and it's just a huge inspiration. It really keeps me pushing forward.
Yeah, like his story was amazing, and being able to talk to him and hear his whole perspective, it's great to see, because at the end of the day, what he's done on his channel, and he's actually got a new video coming out, I think, this week, so stay tuned for that, everyone.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm so excited for that.
I think he's talking about imposter syndrome, and then something else as well. I don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's one of the main topics. I'm sorry, I just want to comment on imposter syndrome because that is so relevant. When I uploaded my desert environment, I was like, okay, I think this is pretty good. I think it's good enough to upload to the world now. So I uploaded it. I put it on my Twitter. I just gave it, some exposure. And then I went to bed because it was at like 2 a.m. I was up all night just getting the video ready, getting everything on ArtStation ready and typed out. So I uploaded it. I put it on Twitter. I went to bed. I thought it wasn't going to get that much attention. I woke up, it had hundreds of likes, and it was on the trending page, which was the first time that has ever happened. Not even the tower environment that has happened to me. And it just blew my mind. I'm like, what the hell's going on? And that's great.
And
congratulations.
I started feeling imposter syndrome. And I'm like, am I really that good? Like, when you invite me onto this podcast, again, I was like, imposter syndrome. It's like, oh boy, like, am I really that good to be on a podcast for this stuff? And yeah, I looked up this picture, and it's like, oh, man, I'm going to look it up real quick because it's a great picture.
On you go. Well, you go.
I don't know if we're running out of time, but I think
we have all the time in the world. My podcast is, if it ever goes over an hour, what I do is I split it into two. Simple that. I'm always down for a good old chat.
There's this graph. It just says the imposter syndrome, and on the left you have two spheres, and this is the assumption. Your assumption is that there's this big sphere, and it says what I think others know, and it's just this big circle. And next to there's a smaller circle that says what I know. So you're basically saying that you're assuming that what you know is less than what other people know. And then the reality of it is that what you know and what others know are equal. Like, you know just as much as everyone else, and it's really just your mind psyching you out. And like, you are valid. Like, your talents, like, you are just as good as everybody else's. So yeah, definitely just imposter syndrome. Like, I'm glad he's coming out with that video because I'm really interested to hear what he has to say about it.
Yeah.
But on you go. No, I was gonna say, like, yeah, imposter. It's just something you have to really overcome.
Of course. It takes time. It's just like, I understand everyone has certain things at different levels. One of my friends goes through it extremely, like, a lot of, you know what I mean, and but he's really great, and it's just down to obviously finding the right words of encouragement. And for example, when you said that yourself, and saying about the podcast as well, like my goal has always been simply to help students out as much as possible and bring on guests who I know are by far definitely capable to get a job for anyone. And like, your artwork is insane. It's amazing to see. So just keep killing it, dude.
Oh, thank you so much. I have another advice, especially if you want to get into the industry. You want to improve yourself. On Polycount, in the career and education section on the forum, there is a thread called "Recently Hired in AAA. Show us your portfolio." I don't know if you've ever seen that thread, but it's basically people posting who were recently hired at a AAA studio, and they post their artwork.
Right.
So you can kind of get a feel of what the quality is, the quality standard. And that is definitely a good benchmark to see even where to get a junior position. And I think what really set in stone that I am as good as I think I am, at least, you can always improve. But what really helped my imposter syndrome is I went through this thread and I clicked on some people who were hired as environment artists at studios, and I compared their work to mine. I'm like, my work is just as good as theirs. Like I do have a chance, and it's and again, you're always improving. Like never stop improving. You always watch tutorials, but I feel like I have gotten to that point where I am, just as good as some of the other people get in the industry.
No, that's great, because like, at the end of the day, you've got to believe, you've got to be confident, you've got to just so this is the thing that I always like to say, and it's the one thing that I think so many students have to start being aware of. So if you're surrounded by great talent, okay, that's an amazing thing. Like that's an opportunity in a lifetime. Don't see it as, oh, I'm not better than them. See it as in, oh my gosh, like this is amazing. I have a chance to learn, become friends with people, and most importantly, be surrounded by people who do the same thing as you. One of my good friends is hands down one of the most skilled people I've ever met, and I could only wish the best things for him. And when he's doing well, I'm so happy because like he's done so much, and he's put so much commitment and hard work, and he's taught me so much. And having all this talent around you is such a positive. So when you're seeing all these things, like Chris is saying, trending, etc., all these great art pieces, think of it as an opportunity rather than a negative. So, great topic to talk about. So, thanks actually going into depth about that, because I've never talked about that that much on the podcast. Right.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Can I bring up one more quote? Is this perfect fine?
Yeah.
It's another Bob Ross quote that just came across my mind.
The more Bob Ross, the better.
I was watching on Twitch. I forget the episode name, but he was painting, and he was talking about how when he would see other people and their artwork, and he would see that they were better than them, he would say, I wouldn't get mad. I would just think about how they did it. I would research. I would think about how they did this work and how I can be just like them. Like, don't get mad. Just see how they did it and just research. use that as inspiration.
Definitely. Thanks for bringing that up, because
no problem. I just want to say that.
No, because at the end of the day, it's so true. It's like you have to know at the end of the day. Like, first of all, you do it because you're passionate about it. People always say you've got to leave your ego at the door and realize that. But then again, you also need to have a wee bit of adrenaline as well. Like, have that kick of believing yourself. Like, I believe, like, as cheesy as this may sound, that I know everyone who's listening to this podcast can do whatever they want, no matter where you are, where you're from, whatever your background is.
Exactly.
You can do it. Think Chris, for example, he's not gone to studies, etc. In terms of, he's not done the education route, and he's kicking ass. He's making amazing artwork, and there's all these different ways of getting into the industry. It's giving it the time and appreciating patience. Like I always say, patience is like, that's one of my things that I've always made sure to value. Just give it time, and you'll do great. Right, next question, man. This is probably well, actually, it might be an easy one based on what you said at the start. Favorite game and why?
Favorite game, Half-Life 2.
Yeah, I
absolutely love Half-Life 2. That is the game that got me to PC gaming. Before, I was always on consoles, like I had a PlayStation 2 and the original Xbox, and I went to a gaming center when Half-Life 2 released, 2004, and I didn't have a PC of my own, but they had Half-Life 2 already pre-installed on their gaming PCs. I booted it up. I didn't have experience with other Half-Life games at the time. And so just going into this world and just it was just so amazing, just the amount of detail they put in the environments, and it was just so crazy and so much fun. And then I eventually got a PC of my own and I installed it. And this is when I found out that they had the level design tools that came with the game. And so I checked it out, and it was so cool to be able to use the same exact tools that Valve's level designers used to create the environments. I thought it was just so crazy, and just it was a huge inspiration to me, and that's why Half-Life 2 I think is my favorite. It's what really got me into the industry from at a certain point.
That's a great answer. Right, so next one. Right, this one's a cool one. I'm really interested to see what you're gonna say for this, because I was like, hell yeah, we got to ask this. Right, so What do you think will come first? Artificial intelligence or living on Mars?
Oh man, they're both getting pretty close.
I know. I'm hoping it's the second one. I hope
Now,
living on Mars.
here's the thing about the living on Mars. Now, I think living on Mars will get here first. However, is it going to be very sustainable?
Mhm.
You know, are the people going to be able to live there very easily, and are they going to be able to survive there?
Yeah.
So I think with that in mind, definitely living in Mars first.
Mhm.
I think we're getting there with artificial intelligence. With the assistants that we have on our smartphones, like Alexa, Siri, the Google Assistant. It's crazy what they can do.
Mhm.
I think it's so crazy to be able to just, when I'm bored, I just sit there and I ask my Google Assistant, like, hey, what is the song that's playing?
Mhm.
And I just sit there on each radio station trying to see if I can figure out what the song is. And it's just so crazy that how like in depth that they're getting.
Yeah.
But I really think life on Mars, I think it's going to come first.
Yeah.
we're getting there.
We're getting there because like that was the thing. So like, oh, by the way, so this is the crazy thing as well. So I'm going to be wrong with dates and times, but it was been, I think, 6 years since the major announcement of, I think it's like 60 people are going up. No, sorry, it's like 20 people are going up in 2023. So basically, people are going to, I'm sure it's 2023. There's basically going to be a handful of people that are going to do like the rest of their life living on Mars. And I'm pretty sure it's 2023, it's crazy. It's 3 years away. So if that is true, then oh my gosh, I have no idea what opportunities are going to arise from that, because there's always the great discussions about the discoveries of water, etc., Mars, you name it. And I was saying on the last podcast as well, it's like just Total Recall, just in a nutshell. Just imagine.
Yeah, I think it's important too to try to, you know, like find, okay, maybe we're getting to like environmentalist topics here, but you know, I think it is important to try to kind of see if we can find, you know, sustainable life outside of the planet, just in case.
Yeah.
You know, just in case we
yeah,
have
of course.
to.
You never know.
But and yeah, I just hope it works out. I mean, Mars might not be the prettiest looking place. I think the entire planet is just like desert, like red desert. But in terms of surviving, like keeping human life alive, yeah, it's just important to just try to figure out if we can live somewhere else.
Yeah. Like, well, that's the thing as well. So, like, when it comes to the artificial intelligence side of things, so this was one thing that just blows my mind every time when I see it. So, when you, so do you know in what's the film, Big Hero 6?
Oh yeah.
So, like the mini robots.
Yeah.
So there's a massive tournament that's been going on for years now, and they've got to the point that they can control these mini robots that are literally like deadly, like they fight against each other, right? But they've got to the point that they can now talk to the robot to do the actions, and like they're controlling these fights. So it's like, and like they've also got like the massive scales. So like there's one great artist who was designing basically these transformers. I can't believe I better not forget his name. What's his name? He made the Phoenix the Phoenix piece. Oh, come on, what's his name? His name is. Oh my gosh, I'm killing myself. Wait, let's type it in, because this guy's a legend at modeling. Modeling Phoenix. Oh gosh, it came to me. Brilliant. Right, okay. So the artist I'm talking about. So when it comes to these transformers, so there's an artist called Vitaly Bolkarov. Have you ever heard of him?
No. How do you spell? I'm gonna look him up right now.
So,
like the name.
I'm probably gonna be so wrong here. So Vitali, and then Bolkarov. I think it's Bulgarov, and
Oh, yep, found him. Yep.
he's hands down, like his project that he's working on at the moment is insane. So basically, he had the chance to design transformers that are like 7 to 11 foot tall, and like they work and they function and stuff. And I was just like thinking this artificial question.
Real life?
Yeah, like real, like they're
Oh my
actually
God.
working, and like they're making one for medical care that is literally like 11-foot giant, and he's designed every part, so everything has a reason, a purpose. Just every cogs are turning, like they're not just there to look good, and it's just madness what he's doing over there. It's great to see.
Yeah, his work is. Oh my God, he is a hard surface god.
He is a
This
god.
is insane.
It's just crazy when you type in Vidal. Everyone check him out. It's incredible what he does.
Yeah, check him out. This stuff is awesome.
So I've got so many questions. I hope you have the time.
Yeah, I do have the time.
so
I'm having a lot of fun.
I've got like 6 more questions. I was just like, there's so much great questions. I love doing this part. So, would you rather be a superhero or a wizard?
Ooh, that's a good one.
This was a really hard one for me.
Wizard-
So
Wizards are so fun. Like
Yep.
I love wizards. Like the very like stereotypical like Gandalf, like the big long wispy beard and
Yep.
magic hat. Like those are so fun. But at the same time, like superhero, like if any power you're choosing, right?
Of course.
Oh, man,
So imagine it was like you could be like I don't know, I don't know, the Hulk versus Dumbledore or Gandalf. Well, that's the thing because
I
oh, on you go.
no, yeah, it's tough because I feel like with like you can. I just love the look of wizards. I think they look awesome. I love their big capes and beards and
Yeah,
um,
definitely. It's a hard one, isn't it? It's
I
not the easiest question.
I think I'm gonna have to go with superhero because I think you're gonna be a lot more versatile.
Hmm.
Um, I think my favorite superpower is invisibility. I think being able to use invisibility and invisibility that works with your clothing, so you don't have to go naked for it to work.
Yep.
Just invisibility that works with your clothes, and I will be set. I just being able to just hide is great. Being able
Yep.
to just hide anywhere will get you out of any situation.
Of
So
course.
I'm gonna have to go with superhero with invisibility that works with your clothes, so I don't have to get naked.
Right. Perfect answer. I think I'm gonna have to counter it with my Harry Potter addiction. Right. Okay. I'm going. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna go with my invisibility cloak. I'm gonna have the Elder Wand
Oh yeah, yeah,
and the
yeah. Harry Potter.
Resurrection Stone.
Exactly. Oh yeah, yeah. I forgot about Harry Potter. Like, they have a lot of crazy stuff from. I'm not gonna lie. I've only seen the first movie,
Oh,
and I
yes.
don't know
Okay.
why. I don't know why I didn't watch the other ones because I love the first movie.
Yep.
I don't know what happened. I just didn't watch the other ones. But yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff that wizards can do in that movie. I
Yeah.
completely forgot about that.
But like that was the thing as well though, because when I first saw this question, I was actually, people are gonna hate me because I'm a diehard Harry Potter fan, but I was actually thinking, you know what, I'd probably choose superhero. Like it just seems,
Yeah,
I don't know, it's just like, it just seems like I can't believe I'm saying it, but I think it just seems cool. Like I
yeah.
don't
Like I said,
know.
I think there's so many superheroes out there with just different powers. I think it's just a lot more dynamic.
Hmm.
You know, you can be flying. You can do man. Like I'm not. Oh, man. Yeah, yeah. Like there's just way more diverse powers.
It's so hard. But carrying on this theme of superheroes, right? Would you rather be super fast or super strong?
That's a good one.
So I had one way to counter it, but I'll let you answer it first.
I think I would be super strong because I think it would be awesome if
Hmm.
somebody's like coming up to you and he's somebody's trying to rob you or push you around, bully you,
Hmm.
and you just pick up a car. Like, yeah, you want to deal with this, huh? You
Yeah.
just pick it up and you lift it down and you're good, and they'll just back off of you.
Just.
That's one of my favorite things about Spider-Man 1 with the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans,
Hmm.
is I just loved watching Tobey Maguire, Peter Parker get like bullied in school, and like he gets put like they're fighting,
Hmm.
and his Spidey sense where he's able to just dodge it in slow motion, and it'd just be so cool to have that power in real life because then people like wouldn't mess with you. They'd be like, wow, this kid's crazy, you know?
No, great answer. No, because that was the thing. Because when it came to the whole theme of superpowers, and so obviously we always have to mention the Hulk, the mighty one, the one who's literally the power of everything. Is like his power is like that insane. Like obviously, like what you said there about Spidey senses. Like the great thing about this is a hilarious. I think it was one of the comics. So basically, people were talking about this was ages ago. I learned this from watching one of my favorite channels. So basically, there was this funny scene in a comic when everyone was playing poker. And because it's all these superheroes, so literally like an army of superheroes in one room playing poker, and everyone's like, "Nope, Spider-Man's here. We can't trust him because he could just know, he could just sense everything." He was just like, "Come on, dude!" So he just walks home. And he's just like, "I guess I'm on my own while everyone else plays poker."
Oh, poor Spidey.
I was like,
Oh,
"Gosh darn it, poor Spider-Man." But like the Hulk though is like the great thing about the Hulk is like this is the thing I didn't know. Like he's that powerful, right? That he can literally punch into another universe. Like he can punch through.
what, really?
He's that. Like I did not realize he was this insane in terms of like the comic side of things. Like he's that OP. He could just like, and like the great thing about the Hulk is that he can actually like he's immortal because he can come back from another universe, like another like he's like when he dies he can just tell himself based on what side he wants to be, if he wants to be the Hulk or not. It's so OP. It's just like, yep, if in doubt, be the Hulk or Spider-Man. Great choice.
I didn't know if he was so in depth like that. I thought he was just like a big strong green man. I don't know if he could literally punch through universes.
Oh,
Like, oh my god.
he's literally that insane when people are reading the comics. if there's comic fans, I do apologize if I make any slight mistakes. I'm just doing what.
Yeah, same with me. I don't know anything. I don't know
Okay.
anything about superheroes really.
I do apologize. Right here, this is a fun random one. Would you rather sound like Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck for the rest of your
Oh
life?
man, Mickey Mouse, that's an easy one. Like
Mickey
Donald
Mouse,
Duck is
okay.
just insane. Like, I mean, Donald Duck is just insane, man. Like, at least with Mickey, you would sound funny, but at least people would understand you, and you would
Yeah.
sound like very, very approachable. Very friendly.
That's
Daffy
true.
is like insane. Like, he goes off the walls when he gets angry.
He's just
But,
madness at times.
Yeah, like Mickey, I all about that Mickey.
All about Mickey. Right, would you rather have say all your sentence backwards or have to communicate through your charades for a week?
So sentences backwards. Is that kind of like Yoda, or is it like literally? It's like backward, like reverse.
You'd have to say it reverse. Or you'd have to it's either that or like mime it out for a week. So imagine it's like, I have to go somewhere and you can't speak.
I would backwards because I think I'm really bad at charades.
Right, okay.
You would just look like a madman, and people like what are you doing? It's like definitely backwards because at least with modern technology you could record yourself and then play it back.
Oh, dude,
Oh,
that's
yeah,
smart. I never
see?
thought about that. See, that's
And then
where your
you-
intelligence beats me. I just I
Yeah,
don't think of that.
exactly. Like maybe I'm cheating because I'm bringing in these outside influences, but yeah, so you'd be able to record yourself and just replay it back and be like, okay, I see what's going on, and then just say, hey, this is how I talk. Just bear with me.
Genius. Right, we've got 2 more questions. Right, we've actually kind of. I'm really glad you brought this up earlier. Right, this is probably might actually be the hardest question for you. If you were a Lord of the Rings character, who would you choose and why?
Gimli.
Gimli, did you say?
Yeah, Gimli.
All right,
He's just
interesting choice. Nice choice.
awesome dwarf. I love dwarves, and he's just like a very rough dwarf, and he's he always has the axe and a great beard.
Yeah, amazing beard.
I loved. I don't know if you ever played the old Lord of the Ring games on
I sure
PS2.
did. PS2,
like
Two
the
Towers.
Two Towers.
Oh, best
Yeah,
game
dude.
ever, man.
I loved Gimli. He was just so awesome and just so much fun. Yeah, just fantastic game. I watched someone play it before, just very recently, and those games still hold up.
Yeah.
And yeah, Gimli, badass dwarf.
Good choice. Oh, oh gosh, the nostalgia right there, and then also the return. I love the Return of the King one as well. Did you play
Yeah,
that?
No, I've not played Return of the King. I did watch
dude.
that same person did play through it, and I'm like, these games still hold up. Like and I love the RPG elements as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're playing through, you're leveling your character up, you're unlocking different abilities. It's like this. I would still play this. Like this game is just still so much fun and just fantastic soundtrack. It was really cool how they blended. Because between the cutscenes, they would have scenes from the movie, and then they would transition to the gameplay.
I remember.
And obviously, the visuals are dated, but it's still very seamless transitions. It's very impressive.
Yeah, like I remember, there was 2 main scenes that stood out for me. Was so in when the Ents are fighting, and you see them pulling the water, the to make the whole place flood.
Yeah,
And it cuts between those 2 scenes, and then my favourite scene was actually in the Battle of Minas Tirith when you see the trolls just breaking through the door, and then it transforms over into the cartoon, the PS2 version, and you can be Gandalf just going crazy as the White Wizard. It's amazing.
I think I'm gonna keep talking about this game because I think more people should look into it because it's awesome. In the 2 Towers of the Battle of Helm's Deep is probably one of the most unique things I've seen in a game like it, where because you can play 2-player co-op, and I think the game is a little unbalanced if you're playing by yourself.
Okay.
Because I was watching this person play it, and because they were live streaming it, and they were. It's 2 stages. One is when they are first assaulting Helm's Deep, and they're climbing up the ladders, and you basically have this big chunk of castle wall. And all these ladders, you have to keep kicking them down because they keep putting them up.
Yeah.
And trying to do that by yourself is just absolutely insane. And then after that, they have already breached the walls, and now you're fighting them. You're trying to defend the castle gates before they break in. You're trying to defend Legolas as he's getting his ass beat. I'm sorry if I curse. Is it okay to curse?
Yeah, on you go, far away.
I it's very unprofessional, but it's just he's getting beat. You have to save him, and then you have to go back to defending the walls all by yourself. There's just tons of people on screen. The great soundtrack is playing in the background. It is the most unique thing I've ever seen in a movie game like that. It really feels like you're in the movie.
Yeah.
Just crazy.
It's like just non-stop mayhem. It's like
Yeah.
everyone's just like it's like when he says they've broken through in the film. It's like, oh gosh, let's kick it off.
Yeah, it was like my goose like this game from like the early 2000s is giving me goosebumps. Like, oh man, it's just great games.
Oh, incredible answer. Right, absolutely. It's so great when you just have this. Oh, amazing. Right. So the last question that I always ask everyone on the podcast. So if you could be any animal or creature in the fantasy world or animal kingdom, what would you choose and why? Oh, sorry, not if you could be, but if you could have them as a pet.
Oh, as a pet, okay.
And it was like the same size as a laptop, so really small.
Let me think about. Oh, man, there are so many good ones. Let me think about this for a minute.
So the last two guests. So we had the last guest was hilarious. Milan said a squirrel with a golden spoon from Dungeons and Dragons, and then the guest before that we had Ryan. Ryan was saying the bull truckle from Fantastic Beasts, the one that picks the locks. The wee green guy who
Oh yeah,
out. That was a great answer. What would? But yeah, take your time.
I would have. Man, this is a tough question. You guys are like life or death question here.
If you wanted, I could. I'll let because I've been very generous with people lately. So you can have more than one.
More than one, okay. What kind of animals are there?
I'll let you have three. So three. If that makes it easier.
One, I would have a Murloc from Warcraft.
Okay.
Those things are really, especially if it's like a baby one. Those things are really cute. I don't know if you know anything about Warcraft, but
I know nothing. I need to check this out. So
yeah,
Murloc.
like, just search baby Murloc. There's a model in the game. It's like really like fish-eyed and just like really like cute looking. I would have one of those. What else?
Oh wait, they're awesome.
Yeah, it's like an
Okay.
in-game model.
Yeah,
If you went to BlizzCon at like the early, one of the earliest BlizzCons, you get one of those as a pet. I think his name is Murky, and those things go for so much money
That's class.
nowadays.
Right, so
I would have one of those.
So we got one of them. Nice.
Okay, I would have. Okay, I'm gonna say Pokemon.
Oh, okay. Well,
I would have
which
a
one, though?
Meowth. I love Meowth so much. The talking one from
Yeah.
the show.
Yeah, you got
I
to.
would-
Got to.
I love Meowth. I love cats. I think he's a really cute design. I just love Meowth, like his personality. I think it's really fun.
Mm-hmm.
He would be like the comic relief of my pet trio.
Pet trio, perfect. We're
God.
forming it here.
And okay, so we have the cute one, the comic relief. Now we need a strong one. I'm creating like a trio here.
Dude, you just remind me when you said the word trio. It just reminded me of the Casper, the friendly ghost in the Deadly Trio.
Yeah.
Hey, that
Would you
just,
have
that just made that was like a childhood just flashback in 2 seconds there.
Yeah, we're having a nostalgia trip here with Casper and Lord of the Rings games.
Yeah, even better.
So, I'm trying to blank.
I love it whenever all these guys are like putting so much thought into it. This is brilliant. This is what I'm looking for.
This is such like an important question you just dropped on me. Just wealth of knowledge.
This is the question that summarizes the podcast and how well it's going to perform. Dun dun dun.
Man, you put me on the spot. Now I'm just trying to think of like any animal in any face.
I'm so sorry, dude.
No, you're good. This is fun. You weren't lying.
It's like, whoa, what's he gonna choose? What's he gonna choose?
Okay.
Oh,
I think I got it.
Here we go. I'm prepared.
Okay, we need a strong one. I'm gonna pronounce his name wrong. I don't know if you're familiar with Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh snap! Here we go.
His name Appa. Is that how you pronounce it? The
Oh my
big
God.
bison-looking dude.
Bison, a legend. Oh my
yeah.
gosh, dude, that's a class. Oh my god, this amazing answer. I did not expect you to
Wait
cover.
a minute.
Oh,
You
God.
said if it's laptop sized.
Yeah, imagine a baby version of him. That'd be dope. Like
would
flying
be.
around. You could put your pets on him, and he could fly around.
Okay, yeah, let's go with that. So we got the baby Murloc, he's the cute one. We have Mouth, he's the wisecracking comic relief, and then we have Appa. I apologize for any Avatar fans out there. I've not seen the show in a while. I forget if that's how you pronounce his name, but he's
I'm sure
the straight man, the wise man who just like flies everybody everywhere.
Yeah, it is Appa. It is. Yeah, he's amazing.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, it's right.
There we go. That's my trio, and that's gonna be a movie I'm gonna have coming out soon. Just like I think that'll be a fun series.
So everyone, don't spill the beans. We have no the copyright rules. Okay,
Yeah.
be nice, be
You
nice.
don't promise not to spoil it, please.
No spoils. This is going to be history, people. It's going to be history. That dude, I did not expect that recovery. That was a great answer. That
I told you I put a lot of thought into it. I'm like, what animal really stands out to me that was just awesome? And yeah, he was a total bro in that series.
amazing answer, dude. It has been such a pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks so much. I had a lot of fun just discussing, everything like to my work to just like, personal life and just talking with you. Like you're really cool to talk with. I really appreciate giving me this opportunity. And
Anytime.
I'm going to, you said you were working on a Harry Potter theme, right? Little environment.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I really want to check that out.
oh, thanks. So I do it on Twitch. I'm having a blast doing it and just streaming my process. So everyone who's listening and you want to join in and check it out, that'll be much appreciated. Make sure to check out Chris's work as always. You would have seen an incredible showreel, slideshow as I'm playing right now of his whole work. So you guys won't have missed any of that. And all links are, as always, are in the description below. If you guys are tuning in on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, smash the like button as always, and turn on notifications to be notified every single week when the video is live. And with that said, folks, we'll see you guys next podcast. Bye for now.